Okay, now that it's officially 8:02 here in the Pacific time zone, we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, for those of you who just joined us, my name is Laura Whitney. I use pronouns she, her, hers. I'm the graduate admissions advisor here in the Holland Data Science Institute. Um, Hopefully you're here today because you're considering applying to one of our graduate programs within the Institute at UC San Diego. We actually offer 3 different graduate programs. I'm mostly going to be talking about the 2 in-person programs that we offer today. So the 3 programs at total, right, are the online Master of Data Science program. We also have an in-person Master of Science in Data Science. And finally, we have an in-person PhD or a doctorate in data science program. So if you are thinking about the online program, please email me separately. We can absolutely talk about that program and the specific requirements for that application cycle. It's going to be a little bit different than what we're talking about today. But today we're going to be focusing on both of those in-person programs and what it takes to put together a solid application for those 2. All right, here we go. So the agenda items for today, pretty short and sweet. We have first, we'll review application requirements. This is both at the university level, so for UC San Diego, what it takes to actually qualify to be admitted to a graduate program here at the university, as well as at the institute level. So what does HDSI require of our applicants in order to be considered for admission? Second, we'll kind of break down those application requirements and the elements that you need to submit within your application. And we'll talk a little bit about tips and tricks on how to increase your probability of being reviewed favorably and possibly being admitted to the program. So without further ado, let's jump into application requirements. So as a UC school, UC San Diego does set certain admission requirements for all of our graduate students. We require that applicants have a bachelor's degree or equivalent from an accredited institution in the United States. However, if you are an international student and you've received a bachelor's degree from an international university, that is fine too. The alternative for that is a bachelor's degree from a recognized university level academic institution abroad. Typically, we look for 4-year bachelor's degrees. That is the equivalent of a United States bachelor's degree. If you are from an institution with a 3-year bachelor's degree, we do accept additional postgraduate work afterwards to kind of compensate for that lack in time in your bachelor's degree. We also require that our applicants have at least a B average, so that's a 3.0 GPA on a 4.0 scale, or its equivalent at the time of enrollment. We do look at overall GPA, so if you're a student applying to our program who's completed an undergraduate degree and a master's or another graduate degree on top of that, we will look at the overall cumulative GPA of those 2 programs. We do have an English language proficiency requirement for non-native English speakers. You need to have earned or will be earning a bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degree with grades of B or better from either a regionally accredited U.S. college or university where English is the sole language of instruction, or a foreign college or university which provides instruction solely in English. UC San Diego requires, for that second one, the foreign college or university, requires that students submit a WES course-by-course evaluation at the time of admission into the program, right? So if you've already gone through the trouble and requested that WES course-by-course evaluation and you'd like to submit it along with your application by the deadline, you're more than welcome to, but it's only required if you've been preliminarily offered admission into our program. If you do not have one of these 2 degrees to prove your English language proficiency, your other option is to take English proficiency tests, including the TOEFL. You need at least a 64 for the paper-delivered test or an 85 for the internet-based test. The IELTS, you need a minimum band score of at least 7. Or the DET, which is also the Duolingo English test. This one's new. You need a total score of at least 120 to meet our English language proficiency requirement. HDSI actually does not have any additional admission requirements. Some graduate departments on campus require higher minimum GPAs than the university standard. HDSI does not. Right? We take a holistic approach when it comes to reviewing our applications, and we want to make sure that everyone who is eligible to be admitted to the graduate program gets a fair review in our review process. However, the department does set application requirements, and they are in accordance with the university requirements as follows. So all applications must be submitted online. Here's a link. If you haven't already opened this link, I highly encourage you to get familiar with the online application, even if you're not thinking about applying for the fall 26 cohort. It's good to just kind of open that application, start it, see what it looks like, see what the requirements are, just get a better understanding of what your future may hold when it comes to applying to our program. We do require that students submit transcripts with their application. However, at the time of submission of your application materials, only unofficial transcripts are required. You don't have to have those official transcripts verified and sent to us for that initial review. If you are admitted to the program, however, that's when you'll be required to submit those official documents, those official transcripts to the university. Test scores, similarly, right? So if you are required to send in your IELTS, TOEFL, or DET score for the English language proficiency requirement, or if you choose to send in GRE scores, this would apply to you. So again, similarly to transcripts, at the time of submission of your application, self-reported scores are accepted. You don't have to send those official verified scores to us when you submit your application. However, if you are admitted into the program, you will be required to submit those official scores to the university. Please keep in mind for both transcripts and test scores, admission to our graduate program is conditional upon verification of grades and test scores. So it's in your best interest to be honest, right? To fairly represent the scores that you've received on these tests or in your transcripts in the past, because this information will be verified. Finally, letters of recommendation. So no matter what program you're applying to, all graduate programs at UC San Diego require letters of recommendation, but the number can vary from department to department. You will be asked to supply the names and email addresses of your recommenders within that online application. And then those recommenders will be sent a unique submission link to upload their letters. If you or your recommender are having any trouble with this process, what I would encourage you to do is look up our LOR troubleshooting webpage that UC San Diego publishes. That's particularly useful. If you can't figure it out from there, you're more than welcome to email me. My email will be at the very end of the slides, and I'll help you out as best as I can. All right. Next up, we've got Halajialu Data Science Institute application requirements. So these are the items that you've likely seen on our website. The QR code is in the bottom right corner of your screen. You're more than welcome to look at our website at any time. But in order to apply for either our in-person Master of Science of Data Science or our PhD in Data Science program, you're going to have to prepare the following documents. The first one is your statement of purpose. We also require either a CV or a resume. Either one is fine. We'll talk about this a little later in our webinar today. 3 letters of recommendation. That is a hard number. So if you are thinking about submitting your application with only 2 letters of recommendation, please keep in mind that this is considered an incomplete application. You will have to find a 3rd recommender to submit a letter for you. We do require transcripts be sent along with the application. Again, right, unofficial transcripts at the time of submission is absolutely fine. International degrees will eventually have to be accompanied by a West course by course evaluation, so just keep this in mind for my international degree holders. The GRE score report for our programs are optional. If you have taken the GRE and you're very proud of your scores, you're more than welcome to submit them along with your application. However, if you did not take the GRE or you took the GRE and are not super proud of your scores, you don't have to disclose that information to us. What we don't know can't hurt your application, right? Finally, the application fee is required at the time of submission of your application online. All right, now that we've covered the basics, let's dive a little bit deeper into those application requirements that HDSI has imposed on our students and how you can maybe work to improve or better those items. Let's start with the statement of purpose, right? So this one was listed first. We'll start at the beginning. So the statement of purpose is a really great document for our admissions committee to get to know you as a student and a scholar a little bit better, right? It's a little bit more personal than a resume or CV, and it can fill in a lot of, holes, gaps, or questions that our reviewers have when looking at your other documents. So here's a couple of things that we would like to know about you that you can talk about in your statement of purpose. So what do you want to study in graduate school? Hopefully the general answer is data science, right? You are applying to a data science graduate program, not a computer science, not an engineering, not a mathematics graduate program. So tell us a little bit about your interest in data science. If you have a more niche research interest or a more niche academic interest, you're more than welcome to elaborate. We'd also love to know why you want to study this particular topic. Were you introduced to this topic in a high school course? Did you do volunteer work and really love this particular line of questioning, right, in research? Let us know why you're interested in this particular subject. What experience do you have in your field? Have you just graduated with your bachelor's degree? Have you completed a capstone project? Are you a working professional? For what company do you work for? What projects have you been working on? Tell us a little bit about your background. And then what you plan to do with your degree once you have it, right? So looking into the future is a really great thing to do in a statement of purpose as well, because it gives us an idea of what your goals are and how our department, how our program can help you actualize those goals. Please avoid just listing everything that's already in your resume or CV. This is not the place to do that. So if you've done a draft of your statement of purpose and you're reading it back, and then you read over your resume or CV and they start to look eerily similar, they're in the same chronological order, they talk about the same skills, you might consider adjusting your statement of purpose to talk a little bit more maybe about your future goals or faculty members you might want to work with that are in our department. Just try to make sure that those two documents aren't identical, right? Next up, do your research. So what opportunities at UCSD or more specifically HDSI excite you, right? Are you looking to go to certain conferences that you know the department has funding for? Are you looking to take particular classes that are offered in this degree program? Are you, next question, which HDSI faculty do you hope to study under or research with, right? Is there a researcher in our department or a faculty member that you really want to learn from? Let us know who they are, what they're doing that really interests you so much, and what you would like to contribute in that particular class or that research area as well. And then also, how do your values and goals align with HDSIs? Here, we'll go to the next one real quick. So just briefly, here's HDSI's mission statement. So our mission is to lay the groundwork for scientific foundations of this emerging discipline, develop new methods and infrastructure, and train students, faculty, and industry partners to use data science in ways that will allow them to solve some of the world's most pressing problems. We serve as a unique, collaborative, and innovative academic unit across multiple disciplines at UC San Diego. So there's a lot of different elements of this mission statement that you might align with, right? Solving the world's most pressing problems, collaborative research efforts, right? Training the next cohort of data scientists, right, to be able to solve these questions. Any of these elements that you're finding in our mission statement that you think aligns with your personal goals as a student, as a researcher, or as a professional would be really great things to touch on in your statement of purpose. And then finally, I encourage you to ask for feedback from a trusted peer. Don't just feed this into a Grammarly, right? Actually ask for human feedback. I would encourage you to consider two peers, possibly one that's very good with grammar and writing, right? So that they can kind of look over what you've written and suggest any technical changes. And then second, someone who's a subject matter expert. So if you're talking about some of the research that you've done or the projects that you've worked on, ask someone to review your statement of purpose that understands those concepts and can provide feedback on that context. All right, next up, we have the choice of submitting either a CV, which is a curriculum vitae, or a resume. I get a lot of questions from prospective students asking, is one better to submit than the other? The answer is no, right? However, they are different documents that serve different purposes. So we'll start on the left-hand side, your curriculum vitae or CV. A CV typically emphasizes academic accomplishments, so is a little better suited for folks who have been in an academic environment for an extended period of time and have those accomplishments to kind of tout. Whereas on the resume side, it mostly emphasizes skills, okay? So a good example of a curriculum vitae would be of a tenured professor, right? And their academic accomplishments would most likely include a number of degrees, so usually a bachelor's and a PhD, possibly a master's as well. But then it would also talk about the courses that this person has taught, any awards that they've received for their research or teaching, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas a resume talks a little bit more about a professional's, obviously you'll talk about your degree, right? Your training, if you have any, but it also talks about the skills that you've honed in working on particular projects in your work environment or in your academic environment. So if you've done a capstone project or if you were a lead for a team at work, resume is usually a better place to talk about those skills that you've developed in that particular context. Next up, we have curriculum vitae typically includes a full list of publications, posters, and conference presentations, whereas the resume is typically no longer than 2 pages, with an additional page for publications or poster presentations if they're highly relevant to that particular job that you're applying for. So curriculum vitae tend to be lengthy, multiple pages. They kind of go on and on because they just list and list and list. And for researchers that have a number of publications, this can get quite lengthy. The resume, however, if you don't have that long pedigree of publications and posters and presentations, is really great because it's intended to be short, right? It's intended to be easily digestible and highlights the major accomplishments that you had in your career. If you have presented at conferences or you have any publications, whether that's primary offer, secondary, et cetera, listing them on a resume is still absolutely acceptable. It's just not the primary focus of the resume. And then finally, the curriculum vitae always begins with education. Because it is more of an academic-based document, your education is always listed at the top. Whereas for resume, typically after 1 year of professional work experience, you won't lead with your bachelor's degree anymore. You'll lead with your most recent work experience because it's focused more on skills, work experience, and achievements, right? So these are just some of the things to kind of consider when you're going back and forth between whether you should be creating a curriculum vitae or a resume. On average, most of our students who have completed their bachelor's degrees and are pretty quickly applying to a graduate program, the resume suits your needs just fine. If you've been in a research position or in academic positions for a while, curriculum vitae may be the better option for you. Next up, the requirement of 3 letters of recommendation. So we talked a little bit about how your recommenders will be sent that unique submission link online. But when it comes to selecting your recommenders, here's what I suggest. Prioritize academic and research recommenders over recommenders who might be able to talk more about your soft skills, right? Because you're applying to a rigorous academic graduate program, it behooves you to find recommenders that are able to talk about those topics, right, in detail. So your strengths in algebra, probability and statistics and programming are things that we like to see in these letters, as well as kind of the technical skills that you've been able to bring to different projects, whether that's in the professional workplace or in the academic sphere. I also recommend that you select recommenders who have positive things to say about your work. I know this seems a little self-explanatory, but I would have either a very frank conversation with a potential recommender before asking them to submit a letter, or having kind of lengthy back and forth email conversations, just to make sure you're on the same page of their knowledge of your abilities and their perception of your abilities. Next, I encourage you to help them remember you. So there is no rule saying that you can't give them information for them to choose to either put in your letter or not, right? That's always their right, but help them find that information that shows that you are a good worker or a good student. So when you reach out to faculty members, professors, leads, managers, whatever it is, I encourage that whether you talk to them in person first or not, always follow up with an email. And in that email, you should really be attaching a project that you did in their class, or a project that you did while working under them. Remind them of your grades or of your professional outcomes. Were you able to meet deadlines? Were you able to satisfy stakeholders, et cetera? And also call attention to your contributions and accomplishments. This is a place where you definitely don't need to be shy, right? You want to help them remember how good of a student or how accomplished of a worker you are or have been. I also recommend that you reach out early. So recommenders must submit their letters by the online deadline, which is actually December 3rd. I'm so sorry. I will change that date before I send this out to everyone. So recommenders must submit their letters of recommendation online by December 3rd, which is our application deadline. While their submission links will remain active beyond this deadline, I highly encourage you to ask them to submit by the deadline, because as soon as our application closes, our faculty reviewers begin reviewing applications. And if if one or more of your letters of recommendation aren't attached to your application, we're not going to be able to review, right? Next up, if you have not already reached out, you may be cutting it really, really close. So if you haven't reached out to your faculty members for letters of recommendation, they have less than a month at this point to write a letter and submit it for you. So I would encourage that you maybe come up with a list of backups. If you reach out to these folks and they say, hey, sorry, I don't have time to write a letter, please ask somebody else. Make sure that you have a fourth or possibly even fifth person to reach out to. All right. Next up, transcripts. So when submitting transcripts, please include transcripts from all college level institutions that you attended. So if you started your collegiate career at a junior college or a community college, please make sure to find a copy of those unofficial transcripts and submit them along with the rest of your application materials. As a reminder, unofficial transcripts are accepted for the initial application, and official transcripts are required if admitted to the program. All right. That one was short. Next one, GRE score report. So please remember, the GRE score is optional for this program. You're more than welcome to submit the GRE score, but you're also welcome to not submit the GRE score. Either one is absolutely fine. I have a lot of students who ask me, Laura, how do I figure out if I should submit the GRE score or not? And here's kind of a line of logic to help you make that decision. So the first thing that you need to ask yourself is, are you good at test taking, specifically standardized test taking? So if you think back to your high school career, to the SAT, to the ACT, did you do well in those standardized test taking environments? Did you not? Were you nervous about it? Were you super excited to do it? If the answer is no, consider not sending GRE scores. Like, don't even take the test. Don't even take the time to do the GRE. Your time can be better spent elsewhere, reaching out to your recommenders early, writing a really great statement of purpose, jumping on an extra research project to gain experience, right? There's so many other things that you can do with your time and energy that's not taking the GRE if you're not a good standardized test taker, that would still be able to bolster your application. However, if you love standardized tests and you really excel at them, the next question you want to ask yourself is, okay, I took the GRE, am I satisfied with my score? Specifically in the quantitative reasoning section, since you're applying to a data science graduate program. If you're not satisfied with your GRE scores, any of them, right, whether it's quant or otherwise, if you think it's a poor reflection on your ability as a student, don't send the scores, right? What we don't know as a department can't hurt you. Do not send those scores to us if you're not satisfied with them. If you are satisfied with them, if you got a stellar quant score and you want us to know about it, go ahead and send in your GRE scores. The GRE, I believe they still do this. When you're in that testing facility and you've completed that hour-long test, at the very end, they ask you if you would like to submit, I believe it's 3 free test scores to institutions. Take a second when you're thinking about that, right? Don't rush in to send any score. Really review your scores and ask yourself, am I proud of this score, or am I not so satisfied with this score, before you take advantage of those free test score sending options. Okay. Last thing that you need to submit in order to be considered for admission to our program is, of course, the application fee. For the fall 2026 cohort, the fees are as follows. For U.S. citizens and permanent residents, your application fee will be $135. For international applicants, your application fee is $155. I often get questions from students about applying for an application fee waiver. Unfortunately, HDSI does not offer department-supported fee waivers. So if you are interested in applying for the university-based fee waiver, here is a screenshot of their instructions. You will have to complete an online application. It's embedded into your online application for admission to the program, which is convenient. Just make sure that if you have any questions about this to reach out to GEPA. If you're not sure how to reach out to GEPA, you're more than welcome to reach out to me and I'll forward your message to them. All right. The last thing I wanted to talk about was just what a qualified candidate looks like for admission to our in-person programs, excuse me. So first thing that I want to mention is that HDSI is dedicated to fostering an interdisciplinary approach to the study of data science. We admit graduate students from all academic and professional backgrounds. You don't necessarily have to have data scientist listed on your resume if you're coming from industry, and you definitely don't have to have data science as your major if you're coming straight from your undergrad or even from another master's program. The elements that our admission committee looks for in applicants are as follows. So the first one is previous experience with the following topics. The first one being linear algebra. The second one being programming. Any language is absolutely fine. R, SQL, Python, just so that we know you have the skills to be able to pick up these languages. And then third is statistics and probability, right? So if you're coming from a computer science background, you most likely have taken college level courses in all of these areas. However, if you're coming from another academic background, maybe where statistics wasn't as prevalent, or if programming wasn't included, right, in the trajectory of your program, that's absolutely fine. You don't have to have experience in all of these. These are just the things that we look for. If you're looking to gain experience in an area that you maybe are lacking in, let's take programming, for example, you're more than welcome to take online courses, boot camps, anything to kind of increase your skills in that particular topic area. And make sure to include that in your resume or CV and also in your statement of purpose. Our reviewers like to see initiative taken to fill in gaps of knowledge, right? When it comes to these topics, professional experience is also considered as previous experience in linear algebra programming and statistics. So if you're working currently as an analyst and you're using a lot of statistical sequences, that is considered as experience. You don't necessarily have to have the very formal collegiate experience of courses. The next thing we look for is sustained academic success. So we talked at the very beginning about our GPA minimum being a 3.0, which is a B average. This may seem low to you, especially if you're looking at other programs who require 3.5s or even higher GPAs as admission standards into their program. We do this because we understand that progress is not linear, especially academic progress. We are a post-pandemic program, which really means that we understand that along your collegiate career, sometimes there's dips, right? You can have a bad quarter or a bad semester, but still be able to bounce back and graduate with your degree and become a successful professional in whatever discipline you're entering. So we look for sustained academic success, general trends, right? Are you doing well in your courses, especially as you transfer from your general education courses at the beginning of your career into your more specific STEM, data science, whatever it is, related major courses towards the end of your career. A dedicated interest in data science is also something that we look for. We comb through your application materials to find traces of this through academics, the courses that you've taken, and the grades that you've received for them, personal projects, whether that's a capstone project or a nonprofit project or a professional project. That's fine too. And then, of course, we do look at your professional work. If you have this, great. We definitely consider it. If you're a student who's coming straight from your undergraduate degree and you haven't worked professionally, that's absolutely fine. It's not a requirement. These are just some of the items that we look for when it comes to a dedicated interest in data science. So all of these things that I've just listed, we look for in applicants for our Masters of Science program, as well as for applicants for our doctoral program in data science. But the one thing that we do specifically look for in our PhD applicants is demonstrated research experience, either in the professional or academic setting. I like to tell students that the PhD program and most other PhD programs at UC San Diego are kind of elevated research apprenticeships. So if you think back, right, to kind of an older understanding of the word apprenticeship, maybe you wanted to apprentice with a blacksmith, you would go and learn from the blacksmith, understand the trade, understand the skills. And then once you mastered all that they had to teach you, you went off and created your own blacksmithing business, right? Very similar for PhDs, right? You come to our department, you find a researcher, a PI, a faculty advisor that you want to learn from. You spend 4 to 6 years learning from them, trying certain things on your own in your dissertation. And then by the end of your program, supposedly you will go off and conduct your own research and start your own labs at other institutions. So we look for that research experience in our PhD students because we want to make sure that you're prepared to take on a rigorous research-based PhD program. All righty. Okay. This is, I mean, everything is important, but this is the really important stuff. If you are looking to apply for the fall 26 cohort, so within the 2025 year, our application opened on October 1st, 2025. It closes on December 3rd. So if you're thinking about applying to fall 26 cohort, make sure that all of your application materials are included in your online application and that everything is submitted no later than December 3rd. The application should remain open until midnight. I highly encourage you not to wait that long. Try to submit it well in advance of that, as far as you can be. If you run into technical issues, you're more than welcome to reach out to me, but try to avoid that by not submitting right before midnight Pacific Standard Time. A couple of other dates to keep in mind. So UC San Diego offer letters will be sent out late March 2026, so next year. The student decision deadline, so when admitted applicants are expected to let us know whether they plan to accept or decline our offer, that's April 15th, 2026. And then finally, fall instruction begins for fall 26 on September 21st of next year. Okay. So, as I mentioned a couple of times before, if you have any questions about the programs, about the application requirements, about the dates and deadlines, feel free to send me an email. I monitor DSC grad admissions at ucsd.edu daily. We are receiving a very high volume of emails, so it may take me a day or two to respond to your specific query, but I'm very happy to answer any questions that you might have. Okay, that is it for our webinar today. Only took us a half hour. Lovely. I will stick around until 9 o'clock to answer any questions that you all might have. I, on my end, am not seeing the Q&A section. So if you have any questions that you'd like to ask me, you're more than welcome to put it in the chat, or you can raise your hand and I will call on you. But thank you so much for being here today. I hope to see all your applications come in soon.